James, I was just watching Fox News and they have the breaking news strap at the bottom of the screen and it said moose spotted near Trump-Putin meeting. It's before the two main characters arrive in town, all the journalists scrambling for something, anything to point a camera at.
I can tell you, Martha, we got a qualified result. We were filming something, scenery, and one of the team said, "There's a bear." And the cameraman said, "What do you mean? It's a dog." So we all turned around and the size of the thing, and the producer said, no, look at the size of it. It's a bear. And of course, we started running towards it to film it until the producer said, whoa, hang on. It is a bear. Don't get too close.
You're the envy of the world's press.
Exclusive.
A real life bear.
Yeah, no interview.
I'm Martha Kellner.
And I'm James Matthews.
And it's day 207 of Donald Trump's presidency. And for once, James, we're together in the same room here in Anchorage, Alaska. It looks a little bit like a ski chalet, doesn't it?
It looks very much like an Airbnb, let's be honest.
There is a moose on the wall, a moose head on the wall, not far away.
Yeah.
We are here, though, ahead of one of the biggest days of Donald Trump's second term so far. He's going to be meeting, not far from here, Russia's President Vladimir Putin. He's coming to the US for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah, in the high-stakes US presidency, the stakes are particularly high. To quote Donald Trump, he's not going to mess around with me. Well, we'll see. Well, how will the history books record it? The beginning of the end to the Russia-Ukraine war, or a listening exercise as the White House is now framing this?
It's a huge moment for Trump, isn't it? He is, as you might imagine, reveling in the attention. The big question, though, is can he actually make a breakthrough on bringing the Russia-Ukraine conflict to an end? We're going to dig into all of that. We'll also be joined by our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett, as well.
Now, Martha, we will reconvene tomorrow, picking over the bones of this Trump-Putin summit. So we'll have another episode in the Trump 100 feed on Saturday. But before we get there, there is much that is going on right now behind the scenes with regard to this meeting. Much happening here, much happening in Moscow, and much happening in Europe. But first of all, Alaska, where we are, the outskirts of Anchorage. It's Alaska's most populous city. What do you make of it?
I mean, it's exciting to be here. It feels a little bit like Manchester in October. It's 14 degrees and it's raining. It doesn't look like Manchester though, but it's, snow-capped mountains, glaciers. Visually it is absolutely stunning. Wildlife, as we were discussing, everywhere. A lot of people wearing camouflage cargo pants. A lot of people fishing. It's salmon fishing season at the moment, I'm told. But yeah, I mean, this meeting's been hastily thrown together, hasn't it?
Yes.
So much so that there's not actually enough hotel rooms for all the journalists, dignitaries, everyone visiting to stay in. So everyone's, in Airbnbs. It's boom season for the Airbnb owners of Anchorage.
Yeah, absolutely is. I'm just waiting for the owner actually watching us on a hidden camera, barging in saying, no podcasting. It's not in the terms and conditions. For me, there is very much an atmosphere of Cold War, actually, I find, because we've been out, on the moose hunt. You see, we bumped into it was a kid's summer school taking place in a missile chamber that obviously, used to be operational. And, you see shelters scattered about because we are just a few miles from Russia across the Bering Strait.
55 miles, I think.
55 miles, 3 miles to an Alaskan island. This is the sharp end of the Cold War. It was for so many years. Russia next door, the Russian bear banging on the back door for so long. And, this meeting is going to take place in a base by the name of Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska's largest military base. 32,000 people there, apparently, 10% of the local population. And for so long, for so many years during the Cold War, this was a listening base, a place to monitor the Soviet Union and everything it was getting up to.
And still very important in terms of training exercises and readiness for any conflict in this region in the future. And the reason that they've picked this military base is because it was thrown together at such short notice. There were really limited options in terms of where they could hold it because of the security apparatus that has to surround a meeting between a US and a Russian president. It does, though, take Trump 8 hours to get here, Putin 9 hours. It's not an easy journey for either of them. It's going to be a fly-in, fly-out visit, as far as we know, for Donald Trump. He's not here yet. But shortly before we began recording this podcast, he did take questions in the Oval Office about how he thinks this meeting will go.
I think that President Putin would like to see a deal. I think if I weren't president, he would take over all of Ukraine. It's a war that should have never happened. If I weren't president, in my opinion, he would much rather take over all of Ukraine. But I am president, and he's not going to mess around with me.
Trump held a big meeting before this summit with European leaders, including President Zelensky. He apparently offered some reassurances, especially to Zelensky, about what wouldn't be discussed in this meeting. He said there'll be no direct talk about land swapping, despite indicating to the contrary earlier on in the week. He's also at pains to say that this is not the most important meeting. He said the most important meeting will be the follow-up meeting after this, which he says he intends to be a trilateral meeting between him, Putin, Zelensky. And he also did just say possibly some of the other European leaders as well. He admitted in those comments just now that the situation in Ukraine, in his words, is more complicated than he thought it was when he came into office. Of course, he came into office saying he was going to fix it within 24 hours. But I also thought it was interesting that, he's going back and forth in terms of his relations with Putin and Zelensky and who he favours, but he is still saying everybody's to blame here. He said Putin's to blame, they're all to blame. He won't abandon this idea, this notion that Ukraine had a part to play in the invasion of their own country.
Yeah, Trump is all over the place, actually, in terms of the substance of this meeting, where he is going to take it. He is freestyling his way through this, as far as I can gather. He mentioned the Oval Office news conference. Prior to that, he gave a radio interview to Fox News. He said there is a 25% that this meeting will be unsuccessful. But
they like those odds in Ukraine? I don't know.
I wouldn't put money on it, would you? He spoke about, he said this, the word divvy things up. It's not a bad term, okay, but there will be give and take as to boundaries, lands, etc., etc. So he's changing his tune every couple of minutes. The one consistent line he has taken through this is this business of playing down expectations. This felt like the big peace deal summit.
Yeah.
Then it became a feel-out meeting. Then it was a listening exercise. It's going to be a one-on-one meeting. That worries Ukraine. That worries Western allies because, Trump being alone with Putin, this US president exposed to the KGB master. Trump, naive, sitting opposite this guy who's well seasoned in the arts of negotiation, the dark arts. And Trump, of course, we have seen fall as a man who falls under Putin's spell. The Helsinki summit in 2018 sided with Putin over his own intelligence community, when intelligence officials said they are interfering in our elections. And after the Russians gave the green light for this meeting, or after it was going ahead, Trump's tone about Zelensky changed again. Zelensky felt the sharp end of Trump's tongue. So the two of them together is a cause for widespread concern.
I think there is also the sense, as with anything with Donald Trump, that anything could happen. The Europeans feel like they've been in his ear all week. You heard the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz saying that he was, had an exceptionally constructive conversation with Trump. But, this is not a man who, reads the playbook. He could be, like he was in Helsinki, hoodwinked by Vladimir Putin. Again, there's no doubt about it. Vladimir Putin is a more savvy political negotiator than Donald Trump is.
Yeah, and Putin, and we'll speak to Ivor more about this, but he's a guy who will try to exploit Trump's vanity, that sense of urgency that he feels to get a deal done for legacy. And of course, there's his reverence for Putin. And this notion that he carries a world run by strong men. I can see Putin painting this world picture in the form that will flatter Trump.
In many ways, though, Putin's already secured a victory of sorts simply by getting an invitation to meet the US president on American soil. This is a man who's an international pariah, who's invaded a sovereign nation. And here he is shaking hands with Donald Trump, on a US military base. It offers him a cachet.
Yeah.
And
back in the fold.
Yeah. But also Trump will enjoy that moment, that that shaking hands with a fellow strongman. He likes that. He'll already be painting a picture of that image in his mind. James, we're all struggling to work out what on earth is going to happen in this meeting, what the outcome's going to be. Luckily, we've got reinforcements to help with that in the shape of our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett.
Yeah, with the well-travelled Ivor Bennett. I know I've been banging on about this, Ivor. You better tell us, how many hours was it from Moscow?
Okay, door to door, 43 hours.
Wow.
I trust Putin's taking a more direct route.
There was a funny moment when I actually got to US immigration. That was in Seattle. So it was Istanbul first, then Seattle, then Anchorage.
It's never funny at US immigration, but carry on.
Okay, hear me out though. So they obviously asked, what are you doing here? Where are you going? What's the purpose? I said, Anchorage to cover the Putin-Trump summit. And he says immediately, oh, so you're climbing a mountain. I thought he was joking. So I'm playing along, so yeah, feels like it sometimes. Turns out he's not joking. He genuinely thought I was there to climb a mountain called the Putin-Trump summit.
If they reach a deal, maybe they'll find one and call it that.
But that surprised me. I mean, is that because it's not very big news here domestically, or is it because in America summit just means mountain and not meeting?
What do you think's in his mind coming here, Ivor?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think he will know exactly what he wants to get out from this. He is always across all the details, all the facts, all the history, all the legal arguments. And I think his strategy will be to convince Donald Trump that the quickest path to peace is a deal that favours Russia. He can't present it like that, though. I think he'll have to give the appearance of concessions. But he'll be playing on Donald Trump's desire for a quick conclusion to the conflict, playing on his desire to take credit for a ceasefire. So he's been buttering him up, actually. Earlier today, he praised his energetic and sincere efforts to find peace. There'll be a lot of that kind of massaging the ego. And I think he'll be appealing to Donald Trump's transactional nature, trying to suggest there's other things in store if he falls in with Russia's side. So there's been a lot of talk in the build-up in the past couple of days from the Kremlin about the prospect of joint economic cooperation between Russia and Ukraine, joint project in the Arctic, rare earth deals. I think Moscow's kind of dangling what's on offer in front of Washington if they kind of side with them on Ukraine.
Putin, do you think he feels like he's got the edge on Donald Trump? You know, he presumably can remember that meeting in Helsinki. And do you think he goes into this, you know, with a bit of arrogance about that?
I'm not sure it's arrogance, but I think he'll be quietly confident, certainly. He's been in charge of Russia for pretty much a quarter of a century now. He's the master negotiator. This is not his first rodeo. And I think he'll have the measure of Donald Trump. And I think his tactic is also that although he likes to be the one in charge, he knows in this case he has to make Donald Trump feel like he's the one who's calling the shots. But I think you're already sensing that it's the other way around. Like take the location, for example, like you were saying earlier. It allows Donald Trump to think that he's the one who is dictating the terms, forcing Putin to come to meet on his home turf. But actually, it's a massive win for Vladimir Putin, isn't it? A man who's accused of war crimes being invited and welcomed onto US soil for the first time. He hasn't been here in 10 years. He hasn't been invited to meet a US president here in 18 years. It's really quite incredible.
Yeah, tell us about Putin, Ivor. You've been closer to him than us. You've been in the same room. Yeah?
I've been in the same room a few times, yet to get a question. I wonder if this will be it. I'm not so sure.
Well, how does that work?
So the pressers are generally very heavily choreographed. You know in advance if you're going to get a question. You'll be given a seat near the front. You'll be asked what you want to ask about, ask for the kind of parameters for the question, not the exact question, but if you give them the exact question, so I've heard, you'll be more likely to get one. Generally, though, he doesn't take many questions from foreign media, only if it's in a kind of controlled environment. So I'm wondering how this is going to play out here. One thing that's very interesting to know, and what you might not know about Putin, is that he's still very worried about COVID. So if you're in the same room as him, whether it's a room like this or if it's a massive conference hall, you still have to have a COVID test.
Wow.
In fact, last time we had to have 2 or 3 in the days preceding.
Really?
For the BRIC Summit, we had to do 3. That was last October. But this time we haven't been asked for any. the only people, as far as I know, who've been asked to do COVID tests are the Kremlin pool of journalists, so the Russian journalists. And even though Donald Trump is talking about a joint press conference, to me that suggests there might not be one, because Vladimir Putin won't want to be in a room with a load of people who haven't had a COVID test.
Fascinating. Who will be traveling with Vladimir Putin? There are some serious players in there in terms of the politics.
Yeah, a very high-level delegation, the highest, I'd say. It's his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, who's been around for decades, like Putin, very experienced, obviously. His foreign affairs aide, Yuri Ushakov, who generally kind of operates in the shadows a little bit, former ambassador to the US between 1998 and 2008. So these are the two kind of big hitters. That's no surprise. I think that shows how seriously he's taking it. It's also a show of respect to Trump. But the other names on the list are interesting as well. It's Finance Minister Anton Silyanov and also his investment envoy Kirill Dmitriev. And I think that points to the fact that Putin will want to talk a lot about the potential kind of lucrative business deals that can be done in the event of, better bilateral relations between the US and Russia. And that will be, again, the kind of things, the sweeteners they'll put on the table to try and tempt Trump with.
A lot of the talk going into this meeting has been about land swapping. Trump has assured the Europeans that that's not expressly on the table in this meeting. There is, though, a level of symbolism to this taking place in Alaska. The Russians sold Alaska to the US in 1867. I guess the fear in Kyiv...
One of the bargains of history.
Exactly. $7.2
million. Incredible.
Yeah, I guess the worry that Kyiv will have is that their land will be carved up without them in the room. What do you think Putin would find acceptable in terms of land swapping? What's in his mind?
Well, this war has to deliver a visible victory for Putin. His legacy depends on it. After all the costs, the human costs, the financial costs, the geopolitical costs, Russia's isolation, he has to deliver a win. And with territory, that means gaining full control of the 4 Ukrainian regions he's already annexed. So they are Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson. He doesn't control all of them, though, or in their entirety. So to get the bits that he doesn't yet control, he's going to have to trade other bits of Ukrainian territory. And I think that's why we've seen this past week Russian forces kind of launch offensives elsewhere to try and gain bargaining chips that they can maybe trade and leverage if there is this kind of land swap that Donald Trump has been talking about.
Thanks very much, Ivor. Very interesting. You'll be joining us again tomorrow. Look forward to it.
James, Ivor was wondering here, how much the American public even knows that this summit is happening. I'm not sure across the entire US, but certainly people here in Anchorage are aware of it. And we were driving down the street yesterday doing our news gathering for our TV pieces, and our producer Rachel spotted a Ukraine flag. We turn up at this lady's house, knock on her door, very nice lady called Megan. She told me that she bought that flag after watching on TV the meeting in the Oval Office with Zelensky and obviously Trump and Vance and Marco Rubio, when he was humiliated. He was mocked for not wearing a suit. Trump said, "You don't hold the cards in this negotiation." And she was so appalled by that she decided to put a very visible sign of her support in her front garden, because obviously this is a deep red state, Alaska. And I asked her what she thought about the fact that Putin was going to be just, a few miles from her house. And, she said, I'm appalled, I'm horrified that A, he's been welcomed, and that B, this meeting is taking place without Zelensky in the room. How do you feel about Putin being a few miles from your house, being hosted on a US military base?
He's not welcome here. I mean, he's not welcome by me. He is an international criminal, and Trump took us out of the International Crime Court. And I certainly think that Putin being here, he should be arrested. He is an international criminal. He is killing women and children and people in hospitals.
And now he's going to be at a military base on your doorstep.
He's going to be right over here, about 5 miles away. He's not welcome by me.
So I think for some people, for some voters, this is a real issue that, they're pretty disgusted with.
We, Martha, went to a place called New Chance Church. They accommodate, resettle Ukrainian refugees. There are 250,000 Ukrainian refugees in the States. United States as a whole, 1,300 in the state of Alaska. We spoke to Anna Yarova. She's the mother of 2 young children. Her husband, he's still back in Ukraine, can't join them. She's been here for 2 years. He's of fighting age. So we asked her about her hopes for the summit down the road.
На мою думку, президент України хоче зберегти.
The president of Ukraine wants to save the entire country of Ukraine, which makes sense. But I hope that President Trump will be able to have some positive influence. But I just don't know if that will be possible. I just have to hope. I have to.
You don't know if it will be possible. Why? What would be the... What's the concern?
Тому що ця війна затяглася дуже довго і
This war has been going on for so long, and it's been so terrible that I don't know if the president of Russia will want to stop it.
We're mob-handed here, James. We've got our colleague Mark Austin here presenting the full coverage from Anchorage. That starts at 5 p.m. UK time today before this historic meeting, and coverage all through the night afterwards as well. What's your prediction on what we'll be talking about after the meeting? What will be the outcome, do you think?
I think the outcome will be 2 leaders probably talking up the substance and the content of what they have achieved and discussed. But ultimately, I don't expect to see a concrete result, not a result that will please Volodymyr Zelensky or his European partners. I can see Putin presenting Trump with a deal he knows Zelensky will never accept. In the hope and expectation Trump will then blame Zelensky and Ukraine, and the consequences of that, I think, are dark indeed.
Yeah, I think similarly to you. I think in reality this meeting is not going to change that much. I'm not sure whether there will be a follow-up meeting, especially one that happens, so soon after it, as Trump is suggesting. I think Trump has to come out of this with something to show for it. I think there'll be the appearance of an outcome, something that he can point to as progress. I'm not sure there will be anything that tangible, but we'll see.
We will indeed. Thanks very much, Martha. You'll be back, as will Ivor and me tomorrow, checking our homework, seeing if these predictions were right in about, 36 hours' time?
Yeah, it's a big day ahead.
Yeah.
Rest up, get some sleep.
Yep.
And we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks very much. See you.